My name is Michael, and I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober since November 26th of 1986. So, I'm supposed to tell my story today, so that's what I'm going to do. I always like to preface my story with a few things that I like to kind of throw out as disclaimers. The first one is that I used to use drugs and alcohol both at the same time. And there are people in here who say it's Alcoholics Anonymous, and you should only talk about alcohol. But I'm just going to tell you that my drug of choice was whatever you had the most of. It didn't matter to me. If I got to the party late and all you had left was tequila and Diet Dr. Pepper, I'd like one, please. Because that's the way I drank and used. I always was a pig when I used. And the nice thing about that, though, is Alcoholics Anonymous is the only recovery program I need. It gives me everything I need right here. I may have to change a word here or there, but that's about it. The other thing I'd like to talk about is that I found a God of my understanding here, and I didn't think that was going to happen. I was raised Catholic, and there were some weird things that happened with a priest, and I thought that was never going to happen. But it did happen. The God of my understanding is very different than the God of other people's understanding, and that's just fine. And the other thing I'd like to talk about is that the most important thing to me is that Alcoholics Anonymous has forever changed my life. I was thinking the other day, I got sober in November, and I bet you by January of that year I would have overdosed. I was using so many drugs that I would have probably been OD'd around Christmas or New Year's. So I've gotten a 33-year benefit to my life, which I wouldn't have had otherwise. And I have to remember that every day. So something jumped out at me on how it works. It's the part of, if you decided you want what we have and you're willing to go to any lengths to get it. I work with people in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous because that's what my sponsor taught me to do. And sometimes I wonder if they get those two things. I sponsored people in the program who have been 20 years sober. They have those things. The people who are younger, I don't know if they want what we have. I mean, they want some of the things we have. They want their boss off their ass. They want their parents to invite them to dinner. They want their sisters and brothers to not worry about them. But I don't think they want what we have. We have a few more things than that. They also want the privileges without the responsibilities. And AA has some responsibilities to it. There are things that we have to do. You have to go to meetings. I'm 33 years sober. I go to 2 to 3 meetings a week. And people ask why you still go to meetings. I was working with a girl the other day. Her name is Christy. She's a gastroenterologist, and we spent the day together. We got there at 6:15. We left at 6:15, 12 hours. She's a sweet little girl. She's probably 35, very Catholic, very A&M, very Republican, very different from me. And so she was talking to me. She said, so you still go to those meetings? I was like, yeah. Why do you go to the meetings? Well, because you don't hear what happens to people who don't go to the meetings if you don't go. And I thought of something that my friend Eileen always used to say. I go to meetings mostly for 4 reasons. The first reason is I need them. I've never been one of those alcoholics who can live under the false assumption that I don't need meetings. I need them. Because this is where I go to hear the things I need to hear. I also go to meetings because I like them. My friends are here. This is where I have camaraderie. This is where I have people that I get to chat with and talk to. I'll tell them some stories I heard in meetings, and they'll go, "There's no way you heard that at a meeting." Yes, I did. People say stuff that is crazy and unbelievable, but it happens in meetings. The third reason I go to meetings is because that's where they keep the newcomer. And the newcomers are the lifeblood of this place. They're the people who tell us things that we go, oh, I did used to feel that way, and make us keep coming back. And the last reason I go to meetings is to say, thank you. Thank you. Because I wouldn't have been here as long as I have been if it hadn't been for meetings. So I have to bring out this old story. It feels like I'm dragging shit up from my past, and I am. There are parts of it that kind of, I just did this Tuesday at a meeting, and there's parts you have to say and parts you don't have to say, but I never know what's going to come out until I get up here, so here we go. I was born in a small town in northeastern Ohio. It's around Youngstown, Ohio. It's in the middle of nowhere. It is surrounded by apple orchards and cornfields and dairy cows. I brought Harvey home with me once. We had a family reunion, and we're leaving town, and I said, well, how'd you like it? He said, it was a lovely village. He said, but I have a question. I said, what's that? He said, so when the spaceship dropped you off, did they drop you off in the park, or did they drop you off outside the city and you walked in? Because how you came from this little town, I have no idea. It was not the best place to live, but it was a great place to grow up. You know, I saw some pictures of myself recently. My sister sent us these boxes of pictures after Mom died. And there I am as this bright, funny, cute little gay kid running around the house and doing stuff like that. And that would have been okay no matter where you are. But in a bigger city, I think I would have suffered a few more consequences than I did. You know, people maybe in high school would knock your books out of your hand. That's not a big deal. It's not, you're not getting shot at. You're not getting your head stuffed in a toilet or anything like that. So it was a great place to grow up. I came out to my parents when I was 14. It's not like I made this great big decision I was going to come out. Dad found some letters or something like that. And he said, after he talked to me about it, he said, I'm going to take you out back. I'm going to beat this shit out of you. And my mom, sweet little Betty that she was, she said, you can do that if you want to, but you're going to have to come through me first. And I don't think you have the balls for that. Like, yes, Mom. Love that lady. And that's when he said, you'll never make anything of yourself. You'll be a second-class citizen. You'll never, ever get the things you want to attain in life. Which, of course, was the going phrases back then. And after I told that story on Tuesday, I remembered that although he did say that, he didn't act that way. He still sent me to college. He still gave me cars. He still let me come home for Christmas and Easter, which is better than lots of people who tell that same story. He loved me in the best way he knew how. And that's what I've realized about my parents in the whole thing of growing up. My parents loved me the best they knew how. They raised me the best they knew. Because to think they did otherwise, you would think they would have to put us kids to bed, pour a drink, sit at the table, and go, that was fun. How can we fuck them up tomorrow? My parents didn't do that. They were raising 4 kids. They were 35 years old. They had 2 jobs. They were raising their parents. They were raising their siblings. They were raising all this stuff. They were doing all this stuff. And then they had us. They really did the best they could. Didn't find that out till I got in sobriety, though, by the way. They were always still a victim when I first got here. So I grew up, and I was a very bright child, they say. I don't know if that's true or not. It gets less true the older I get. And I had to do things in school. I was good at school. I liked school. It was something I really enjoyed. And my freshman year, right before my freshman year of college, I went to Brazil for 3 months as an exchange student. I don't remember very much about that time, except they have this alcohol there called cachaça, pinga. It's a Coke bottle size bottle of alcohol. It's 140 proof. They drink it with some lime and some sugar and some ice. It took me a couple weeks to get rid of the sugar and then threw the lime out, then kicked the ice out and just drank it from the bottle. It was great stuff. But to this day, I only know one word in Portuguese, which is thank you, obrigado. That's all I know. Came back, went to school. My first weekend in school was freshman orientation. Loved freshman orientation. Wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. So I brought one of Mom's bottles of bourbon. It was a half gallon because that's what she drank. Had my half little gallon of bourbon going to school. And that morning I came to, and there was this girl named Holly who was kind of taking her clothes off and trying to take mine off. She was a large woman. She was 340 pounds or so. And I freaked out. I freaked out. The first time I had started smoking cigarettes that evening too, Marlboro Lights. And I told myself from that day on I was never going to smoke another Marlboro Light. Those things could kill you. Poor Holly. So I went to school when it was the first time that people were gay. People were out and about and doing things like that. It was in the 80s, and people didn't really say anything about you being gay. They could care less. There was before the AIDS crisis and everything else, so it was cool to be gay. And we had lots of fun. We worked at a restaurant. We had these T-shirts made that said "Serve or Die." It was a really nice restaurant. It was a 5-star restaurant. It was from here to the parking lot from my dorm room. The owner decided he wanted young gay men working his tables in the evenings, and I was one of those. So we would make $200 on a Saturday night in the 80s. It was crazy. We were millionaires. Anyhow, when I went to college, I also met a guy named Michael, and he taught me about drugs other than alcohol. The first two were mostly speed and marijuana, which I enjoyed both of. And, it just kind of keeps progressing. They say in the book that it just keeps going on, and it does. I graduated from college. Oh, I was a modern dance major. My father was very proud. And in my modern dance repertoire, I also decided I needed to branch out a little bit. So there was a program there in anesthesia. It was teaching undergraduates how to do anesthesia. So I thought, I'll try that. Why not? And I did well in that program. And so I graduated from Case Western Reserve and decided to go to medical school. So I went to the Ohio State, as they say. And, wherever you go, there you are, because I brought all of my problems with me. My first year, I was kind of scared. There's all these other really bright kids around, and I was just another bright kid. And so I really studied hard, went to class a lot. My sister lived down there, so she was my gardening angel and my Al-Anon who would keep me going. And then I decided I missed my people. So I started going out to the gay bars there. And I was there about 2 weeks when I met, the people I needed to meet. There was this guy I went home with 3 or 4 times, nice guy, and he had a hard time remembering my name, and his name was Michael. So, of course, we became instant lovers. And, it was a crazy, crazy life. I mean, I was still in medical school. I was still doing okay. They had 2 programs in this university. They had an independent study where you would just kind of go. You had a PhD in biochemistry, and you were going to just go through medical school that way. And they had a place where it's called lecture discussion, where you go to class every day. Well, I was in the lecture discussion part, and everyone else thought I was in the independent study part because they never went to class. I would sometimes go for a day, but then I got bored. And but then you went to the last 2 years of medical school, which you're just out there doing stuff. You're seeing patients, you're interacting with physicians, and I do that well. So I finished with all that stuff. And I was starting to have some consequences during that time. I would start, like one day I got really sick and kind of nasty, and I found I had hepatitis C. I was like, oh, that's not good. Another time I was telling you a story the other day at work. We were talking about going to jury duty. I said, well, I can't do jury duty because I have a felony on my record. They're like, you have a felony on your record? Well, I was at this store and I liked this Calvin Klein jacket. So I just stuck it under my shirt and walked out. And I was a little intoxicated at the time. And they asked me if I could please show them what was under my jacket. So it's a long story, but I did some delayed adjudication, I think is what they call it for that. These are things I don't even remember really until somebody brings them up and I go, yeah, I guess that did happen to me, didn't it? My sisters and brothers are great for stuff like that. I came down to Dallas in 1982, and it was amazing when I first came to Dallas. I mean, the city was growing, it was booming. There were bars everywhere, there were people everywhere. The city was electrified, it was amazing. And I came down with 4 guys. We went down there like the Beverly Hillbillies. We had everything on the roof but a rocking chair. And we moved here and, again, started the same thing over again. You know, alcohol, drugs, everything we could find, everything we could get. We used to go to the bar early, like at 7 or 8 o'clock, and we'd stay there till 2 in the morning. We had started playing with this new little drug called ketamine. I think they call it Special K now. I would have, there were people in town who knew me as Dr. K because I would just get big crates of it and I'd crystallize it all and we'd use it all. It's a psychedelic type drug and it was not the best for driving. I used to drive with it all the time. Again, the book says we just keep going worse, and we do. There are things I wasn't going to do. I did them. There are lines I wasn't going to cross. They were crossed. That's what you have to do when you're an alcoholic, especially of my variety. So I want to go to the last year before I go off to treatment. The last year, I'm dating a guy who has a best friend who's a coke dealer, which was very convenient. We had started using cocaine back then sometime during that time frame. By the way, crystal meth is like the drug right now. There was crystal meth back then too, but we didn't use that shit. No. Why do you sell when you can buy good cocaine? So one of the times that one of my poor choices actually saved me a little bit. So I went home I woke up one morning and I couldn't find Robert. I was like, where did he go? So I go looking through the house and I find him in the front bedroom. And the door's locked. So I think, he's in there with somebody. So I bang on the door and he comes to the door and he has a knife in his hand. I said, what's the knife for, dude? And he said, you're not going to hit me again, are you? I said, hit you? And then he dawned on him. He said, you don't remember last night, do you? You don't remember what you said? You don't remember what you did? You don't remember threatening me? You don't remember hitting me? And he had me, because I didn't remember any of that shit. He had me. So he decided to leave. Jumped on a plane and went to San Francisco, I think. I don't know. I knew where he was because he had my credit card. And I had a box at home, little shoebox. And it had everything I needed when I finally developed HIV and was going to die. Because back then, you didn't have antiretrovirals and all that stuff. You just died. So It had a bag of saline in it. It had some tubing. It had some narcotics in it. It had some Pavulon in it, which is a muscle relaxer, and it had some sodium pentothal in it because that's what they used back then. This was my little suicide box. Pulled it out of my drawer, opened it like I'd opened it every day of my life, and tied up a vein and shot in some fentanyl for the first time. And when you're on everything I was on, and you add IV fentanyl to it, you go somewhere fast. You go somewhere really fast. So let's go to the last week. So the last week on Monday, they tell me that they want to have a meeting because they have some pharmacy discrepancies. Okay. I would check out 10 cc's of fentanyl for a 2-year-old to have her tonsils. I would use maybe 1 cc, maybe half a cc, and I would use the rest, but there would never be any I'll waste it all. Anyhow, I got scared, so I thought they're going to check, they're going to find out. I had all these track marks on my arm. So I did what any normal person would do. I numbed up my arm. I put in some fentanyl. I got a bone rasp like you would file down a bone, and I filed down my arm. Blood everywhere. Put some Bovie on it, Bovied it, put some dressing on it, went back to sleep. By the way, the meeting didn't happen, but I got the nice scar from it. On Wednesday, I was in the bathroom minding my own business. I swear to God I was. Minding my own business. And you have a bathroom in a hospital, there's a rail here, and there's a mirror, there's a sink, there's a commode, doing all that stuff. Shooting up like I always shoot up. And I looked in that mirror. And you always play this game when you're an addict. The game goes, I can stop this whenever I want to. This is a game. I can stop this today. And the face that looked back at me said, you can't stop shit, dude. You're mine. Mine. I think that's the day I said the accidental prayer, the prayer that said, help me. The prayer that doesn't give causes or conditions, it just says, help me. Thursday was Thanksgiving. It was a lovely day. I insulted my host who was having me for dinner. I said bad things to her daughter. It was brutal. And Friday, I get this call. We have a C-section. You're on call. We need you here. It's like, so I called Stephanie, the nurse who's at the ER, and I said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Bring the patient upstairs. Set her up. I'll be there. And she said, there's no patient here. But there are a lot of people here. And I walked into an intervention in my hospital. And Dr. Tom was there, and he gave me this great big story about his alcoholism and his drug addiction. I thought, you poor bastard. I would get some help if I were you. He mentioned my weight. I weighed 131 pounds. I have not gotten any taller. I told him I weighed that amount because I have HIV and I was dying. And he said, that may be true, but we still need a urine sample. My HIV came back negative. My urine sample did not come back negative. And then he asked me one question. He gave me a choice. He said, would you like to leave tonight or would you like to leave in the morning? I, of course, chose the morning. And he had everything completely set. He had a place for me. He had everything going for me. He had me, everything I needed to do was all set up to do. But right before he left, and I left, he said, I need something from you. I said, what's that? And he said, I need your badge. Now, when I was 6 years old, I had some surgery, hernia repair. And I told my father that night, I said, I know what I want to be when I grow up. And he said, you want to be that surgeon that cuts people open? No. I want to be the guy that puts that black mask on you and makes you count backwards from 100. 6 years old. That's the job I wanted to do my whole life. And I was ready to throw it away for another hit of fentanyl. It's crazy how that works. So off I went to the treatment center, and they asked me when I had my last drink. I'd flown first class, so I looked at my watch 30 minutes ago. They put me in a room that was my admission room. They go through my luggage. They take out my mouthwash. I didn't know you could drink mouthwash. They took out my cologne. I've never drank Paco Rabanne. They took out my belts, my shoelaces, all that stuff. And then they did something where they closed the door and they locked it and they went away. Just for 45 minutes or so. But it's the first time I've ever been in a room with the door locked that I didn't have the key. It didn't work that way. I was supposed to have the key. And I got the first gift of the program, which is the gift of desperation. The gift that says, I have nothing else I can do. I have no more cute smile I can give you. No more witty remark. I can't buy my way out of this. I can't have sex and get my way out of this. I am here until they say I can go. Best gift I ever got. Matter of fact, in the 30 years I've been here, there are people I see who come in and they don't get that gift. And I don't see them very long. Because if you have someplace else you can go, something you have to try, something that will make this different. If your money or your beauty or something's going to get you out of this, you will go for it every time. I was stuck. A couple days later, I get this knock on my door. Come to Jesus meeting. What fresh hell is this? And I walk into my first AA meeting. And there are people in there. It's a packed room. And there's some guy up there talking about, doing all this weird stuff. And everyone's laughing. I'm thinking, this guy shouldn't even be telling this stuff in public. And you all are laughing? And I looked up on the wall and it said the steps. It said, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. And I thought, it can't be that easy. It can't be. Because I thought I was a fuck up. I thought, that can't be it. That may be some of it, but that's not it. I said that to the counselor. I said, it can't be that first step. And he said, I'll prove it to you. Stay here. Well, of course I had to stay there because they said you can leave anytime you want to. But that little piece of paper that gives you permission to practice medicine and surgery in the state of Texas, we're going to keep that until we think you're ready to go. So they had a very eager pupil, if you will. I came back and decided I was going to go. I came back after 5 months, 5.5 months. And I went back to Dallas, and the boyfriend I had at the time had decided to start selling cocaine or something. Of course, I went back to the treatment center to make sure that this was the right guy. He has to go. So he went. I went back to work. I was actually kind of happy to go back to work. It gave me some structure in my life. Later that month, they had something called the Big D Roundup. And I decided I was going to go to this Big D Roundup. And so I leave the room, I leave my house, and on the way out, I see Jan, who's my neighbor across the street. These are women who I terrorized in the last year of my life. I mean, last year of my drinking, I would call them in the middle of the night. There's somebody in my house. And I'd have the police come over, and I'd knock on their door at 3 a.m. There's someone in my house. Don't know why I did all that. Anyhow, Jan said, well, good, have a good time. And then she got on the phone. There's a guy named Jack C. And when Jack C. talks about his time when he came to Alcoholics Anonymous, he talks about he was supposed to meet somebody for lunch, and he couldn't get there because his alcoholism overtook him, and they took him to some place to dry out. That woman he was supposed to meet for lunch was my next door neighbor. Could be coincidence, could be divine intervention. She said, there's a guy who's leaving his house now to come to some big D roundup, and he is on a blue shirt and he needs help. So I'm sitting there at the meeting, and Jack comes over and taps me on the shoulder and says, my name's Jack, and if you need to talk, I can talk to you anytime you want to. Now, I'm so glad that Jack turned out to be my sponsor, because he was not going to take any bullshit from me at all. I explained to him that I was very smart. I told him I had multiple degrees after my name. He said, so does a rectal thermometer. And we know where that goes. I would say things to him like, God is testing me. And he would say, what's God got to learn from testing you? He would say things like, I would tell him about what was going on at work or what was going on at home or how everyone was being unfair to me. And he would say, what do you think God's going to do in this situation? I said, I don't know. He said, well, he's going to do exactly what he needs to do. It was bad. And of course, his favorite one, which is totally appropriate today, is I'd be complaining about stuff and he'd say, get off the cross, we need the wood. Because I was such a victim, such a victim. But you know what he did? He got the steps off that wall and put them in my life. Amazing guy. Pain in the ass, but amazing. And I started coming to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I liked the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. 3 months in, I met a guy, boy meets boy on AA campus, and we were together for 9 years. He wasn't the man I was supposed to grow old with, but he was the man I got to grow up with. I'm so grateful that that happened, because as I'm sitting there, Jack would have strange rules, like you have to sit in the front row. Why do I have to sit in the front row? Because when you sit in the back row, you look at everybody who comes in. Who are they with? Why are they with him? Huh, he's kind of cute, I don't know him. What's that happening over there? If you sit in the front row, you don't see any of that. You just see the speaker. You just do what you're supposed to do while you're there. Lovely thing he taught me. Another thing he taught me was, if you want what we have, you do what we do. I was like, I don't want to go to a step speaker meeting. And he would say, I don't care. We're going to a step speaker meeting. I've heard that speaker before. They may say something totally different. So, okay, if he's going to be in charge, we have to let him be in charge. And you can do whatever sponsor you want. I just suggest you find someone that doesn't do it the same way you want to do it. And I would tell him, there's other people who don't have to go to all these meetings. There's other people who get to go wherever they want and do whatever they want. And he said, and that is their sponsor's way of doing it. He explained it to me like a man who's trying to go from the East Coast to the West Coast in the 1800s. There are 3 routes. You can go to the north through South Dakota, that way. You can go through the middle of the country through St. Louis, you can go through the southern part of the country through Dallas. And you hire somebody. You say, I'm going to go through the Dallas way. But the guy you hire only went through the St. Louis way. He's going to get you lost. He may get lost himself. So Jack said, it's not a big deal. But just if you want what I have, you have to do it this way. It's the only way I know. It made sense to me at the time. It still makes sense to me. Through the years, there have been all kinds of things that have happened. Gosh. I went through the steps and I found a God of my understanding. He wasn't the same God that my parents had. I thought that God was really kind of punishing and mean. I thought he was very odd in a way. And yet one time I went with my parents, I went with my mother and my aunt to Mass. And, there are two older women and they're talking full voice. No one can hear them. I thought she was dead. No, she's not dead, Mother. Stuff like that. And as I'm sitting there and they go back to pray and their back hits the back of the kneeler and they sit there and they bow their heads and something miraculous happened. They're just one. They're praying to this God and I'm thinking, how can this guy be such mean? How can he be such a bad God? And I looked through that church, and that mean, angry God was gone. He wasn't there. Was he ever? To me, he was, but he was gone that day. I did my fourth and fifth steps. I told my sponsor I'd done that once before, and he said, we're going to do that again. I said, but why? He said, because that person that you're going to call in the middle of the night when your life's not working is going to be me, so I should know something about your life. So we did the fourth and fifth step. I went to his house. He had lit a candle or something. I don't know, some strange stuff. He said afterwards I was supposed to spend an hour going over it, the sixth step and the seventh step. I didn't know beforehand I had a date. I didn't get to do that part. But I've gotten to do it numerous times since then. Because 6 and 7 ask you about change. Are you willing to change? I wasn't willing to change shit when I got here. But I became willing as more of life happened to me. 8 and 9 were very important steps for me. When you join the program Alcoholics Anonymous, you feel like you're a member after you do 4 and 5, but you feel like you're a member of the human race after you do 8 and 9. There were so many people that I had harmed, and I didn't realize it until the time. Like my father, who said you'll never make anything of yourself. He probably learned that there was something different to that story. I didn't know it at the time, but it turned out different. Like I said, he continued paying for school, continued paying for me even when I got down here. Matter of fact, when I got down here, I had his gas card from Shell. But, it's easy to go to Shell and buy somebody gas and they give you $30 and you go buy beer. That's the way we all did it. And he would say to me, your gas bill was $300. This is when gas is like 10 cents a gallon or something like that. And I would say, Texas is a big state, Dad. It's a big state. So there's all this money I owed my father. And he wanted this little tiny cottage on this little small lake in Ohio. It was $30,000. My relationship with my father got better, not when I paid that one thing off, but when I bought the first one, when I bought the first piece of that property, when I sent the first payment in. When he sold it 10 years later, he made $75,000 on it, and he wanted to give that money back to me. I said, Dad, it doesn't work that way. I may drink if you give me that money back. Him and Mom went to Europe or something, I don't know. They had fun. My mother was probably my best drinking buddy. We would sit there on Friday nights and we'd sit there and drink and watch Mannix That was an old TV show for the. There's a lot of people who are going, Mannix. We would watch Mannix. And we're sitting there one night, and she's having a drink. We're watching Mannix. And she said, I'm going to miss that time we used to spend together. I said, I'm going to miss it too, Mom. It was great fun. And then she did something strange. She got up, she walked over to the television set, and she turned it off. Didn't have clickers back then. And she said, I would give up every one of those memories not to have you call me at 4 a.m, sobbing because your life doesn't work. And I thought, how'd this little Italian woman get it before I got it? How'd she understand that before I understood it? My brothers and sisters, oh my gosh, so forgiving. They said when I used to come home for Christmas, Mom would yank everybody down to the basement. They'd have a meeting. It would go something like this. Your brother's coming home tomorrow. Don't piss him off, or he will ruin our holiday. Ruin it. I didn't know that. My sisters didn't tell me until I was 4 years sober. They thought I'd get mad. I never wanted to do that, but I did. Everything that I had done, I got to slowly undo. I had all kinds of financial bills out there. I was making great money, but I didn't want to pay them their money. It's my money, not their money. I'd reneged on my student loans, didn't pay them at all. So when Jack, I got this letter, they wanted their money. I said to Jack, I'm going to get a loan and pay them Jack's like, no. How much do they want? They want $234.56. Why don't you send that to them? And why don't you send it to them every month until it's paid off? It'll give you great credit. Did that. Somewhere towards the end of, I guess, the 2000 range, Jack got sick. Had a bump on the back of his tongue. I sent him to a surgeon. They didn't find anything first, and then they found a oral cancer. They had to take off the back of his tongue, take off his mandible. They grabbed some tissue from his fibula in his leg, brought it up there, constructed a mandible, wired it together. I was there when they were telling him all this, sobbing down his face. Anybody have any questions? So I raised my hand. Is this going to change his singing voice a lot? Like, well, singing voice? What's this guy talking about? And all of a sudden, Jack gets a slap. Then he said they were going to put some tissue from his skin on the bottom of the floor of his mouth to make some tissue there. And he said, I'm going to have hair in the back of my throat. I said, oh, come on, Jack. It's not the first time you had hair in the back of your throat. Got another slap. He asked me before that, would you go through this? And I said, probably not. I probably wouldn't go through it. So he goes through all this surgery, and the doctor says, by the way, he may never speak again. And I said, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, to make your sponsor not speak anymore, who would not give a lot of money for that? I said, you would have to chop his head off and put it in the Sahara Desert in a box, and it would still be talking when you found it later. He showed me a courage I didn't know men had. He went through all that, didn't really bitch too much, and continued going to Alcoholics Anonymous almost every day. I went with him to see Dr. Trulson, his surgeon, at 10 years sober, and at 10 years of after his surgery, and he walked in and said, "You're still alive?" The guy did not have bedside manner. Saying, yes, he's still alive. And we went through the next part of his life, which was a blessing because most people don't get to go through that part of their lives with other people. I found my other sponsor, Kathleen the Kind, as I call her, who was very different from Jack the Jerk. But that's what I needed at that point in my sobriety, somebody who could be kind and loving and help me through the other parts of that I have to go through in this life. I've done almost everything you can do wrong in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've done almost every part of it wrong. The only thing I've done right is I didn't drink. I didn't drink, I didn't use. I've had some surgeries. I took a few pills after the surgery, no big deal. I keep coming to meetings. I keep doing the things that keep me connected with y'all. One day I was newly sober and I had gone to this meeting at Preston. It was so it used to be above the dance studio. I get this knock. Could you come and help me with this woman? Yank her up the stairs. Okay, pick her up, yank her up the stairs, set her down. The person who asked me was Harvey. We started a 30-year friendship, 35-year friendship. People say, how does that happen? Well, it doesn't happen. There were a lot of times when he would say things to me that were not very kind. They just weren't. And there were very many times when I would say things not very kind back to him. But if you still believe in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and you need some place to go and somebody to go with, having a best friend in the program is one of the best things you can do, because there are times there's things I just don't want to tell Kathleen. There are things I just don't want to tell Jack. I can tell Harvey and he'll laugh at them like I did. You meet people along the way. I met 4 or 5 people. I tried every time I got out of a relationship to leave the relationship in the best way I knew how. Didn't always work, but that was the intent going in. I'm in a relationship now with John, and after 10 years, we're going to get married. Who knew? Thank you. More to do with his being a little bit off. He got sober a couple years ago as well, which just helped. And you know, when you get married for the same reasons everybody gets married, because you love the other person, they make your life easier, and it's just time. And plus, it's legal now. Who knew it was going to be legal all those years ago? My life is very full today. I wish I could say it another way, but it's very full. I have a busy practice at work, a little too busy. The COVID thing kind of hurt us all a little bit. You know, I know we don't wear masks here, but I mean, I put my mask on when I get out of my car, and I take it off when I get back into my car. So 14, 16 hours a day with your mask on, it's a little confusing. You come up to little kids where you're putting them to sleep for their tonsils out, and they look at you and they start crying. So I usually pull my mask down. I put my mask on their face or something like that. They laugh. But through it all, I've known that I've had this great program of Alcoholics Anonymous to support me and to keep me connected, which is a gift. You know, I always used to end with this story, but I'm going to change my story this time. There was a woman who got sober, probably 15 years ago, and she died recently. Her name was Natalie Cole. And the first album she put out when she was sober, she has a little prayer on the back of it. Simple little prayer. And it says, God, thank you for all the things you've given me. Thank you for all the things you've taken away. And thank you for all the things you've left me. You can't say it any better than that. I was given a multitude of gifts, a plethora of gifts. And there were some things in there that were not really good. alcoholism, drug addiction, all that other stuff. And those were taken away, sometimes slowly, sometimes willingly, sometimes by force. And what he left me was with this amazing life that I couldn't have gotten here to there except with the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and friends and good sponsorship. I think that's all I have. Thanks. Yeah.